and welcome to another episode of Enchanting Economics in New Mexico. This podcast is a production of BBER, the recognized expert in socioeconomic data for the state of New Mexico. Your hosts, as always, are myself, Reagan McKernan, and Suzan Lytle. And today we're here talking about the census again. Joining us is the data bank manager, Suzan Reagan. Suzan, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Reagan. I always enjoy talking about census data.
So we talked to Nancy Lopez just a month ago about a real concern that New Mexico might not get a count percentage rate that was even as high as it did in 2010. And I know I don't have to remind you that the self-response rate back then was 60%. How is the count going now?
So New Mexico actually hasn't reached that 60% self-response rate. We're up to, as of today, we're at 58.2%. So we're a little bit down from what we did self-response rate wise in 2010. A positive side, though, is that with this enumeration, the census takers going out and doing the non-response follow-up, New Mexico has 39.9% of the houses have been enumerated, which gives us a total response rate of 98.1%. So we're closing in on actually having a good census, but we really need a push for the last couple of days here. Right now, it looks like the census will continue to take self-enumerated responses all the way through October 5th, which is in 4 days. But if we can actually bump up that number and get us even closer to 100% count, it would be really good for New Mexico.
Yeah, because what is it they say? Like every uncounted person's roughly like $3,700 lost for the state or something?
It is. So there are over 314 programs at the federal level that put money back into state governments and counties and cities and other local government agencies. And in New Mexico, about $3,700 per person is what we receive from the federal government. So even a 1% count could be millions of dollars lost to us over 10 years. So it's important that we push and try to have as close to 100% count as we can get.
Yeah. Why do you think that more New Mexicans haven't responded on their own yet?
So there are many reasons, but one of the simple issues is that people just do not realize they can use their cell phones to respond. They can go to www.my2020census.gov and do the survey. And I think they just don't realize it's simple. They can also use their phone by calling 844-330-2020 for English. And if people are interested, the Spanish phone number would be 844-468-2020. And they can respond both in English or Spanish. I think another reason is that many people in New Mexico were worried about the citizen question, and that was not included on this census. They might also be worried about confidentiality or privacy. Current census information is only released in aggregate data tables so that no private information is discernible. Detailed records may remain sealed for 72 years, and the 1950 census responses will be released in 2022. Many people use the historical census records for genealogy research, and I think if people realized how important it was, that maybe for historical purposes, even for their family down the line, answering the census is important. Another reason might be that people just don't understand that it makes a difference. Like you and I were talking, the bottom line is for many governments, it is dollars for them to provide services to programs in education, healthcare, roads, childcare. It's just one of those things that I think people don't realize how important it is, and they're worried about those other things. And if we can reach at least, another percentage point of people in New Mexico with the information that is so important to fill out the census, it's worth it. As a data person, so much of what I do is help people accessing demographic statistics about their local community for research on such things as social justice or poverty or market surveys to expand businesses. And so even businesses benefit by a good census.
Yeah. And since those numbers are so important, let's talk about the deadline again for a minute, because it keeps changing. Self-response, along with other census operations, have had their deadlines changing just within the last month. What is the actual last day someone can self-respond?
So currently, the deadline for self-response is October 5th. But there are some court cases ongoing now that may extend the deadline to October 31st. So we're coming down to the final days, whether it's October 5th or it's the 31st. I think the important message is that we need to see people self-respond who have not responded. And I know we're all dealing with COVID-19 restrictions and the risk of becoming infected. It only makes sense, really, if we can have this deadline extended all the way out to October 31st. That would help allow our complete count committees time to work with local residents and help encourage them to respond. It's just so important that we get out and hopefully get as many people to respond in the last few days here as possible.
Yeah. And enumerators are out across the state knocking on doors, trying to fill in the gaps of the missing data. As you said, they've brought our total up to 97%. When is their actual deadline?
So, to be honest, most of all the census takers and the field service staff have already had their last day. So there isn't the census takers are not out there right now knocking on doors or anything. Most of them were laid off last Friday. And so it's really up to the local complete count committees right now and people who haven't been covered to try to self-respond in the last couple of days.
And when will the 2020 census data be available?
So if things go as planned, the 100% count data, which is a very small sample size, will be released December 31st, 2020. And then from that date on, a rolling release of data tabulations through April 1st, 2020. If we get an extension out to October 31st, our first look at those 100% counts will be April 1st, 2020.
Wow. And so you have the Data Use Conference coming up, and it's entirely free and virtual this year. I'm really excited about that. Let's educate the people on some of the sessions that you're offering, because a lot of them do have to deal with the census. What can they expect out of attending, or why should they attend? And how can they register?
Well, if you are working with data like I am on a regular basis, there are several 3+ of the sessions will cover how to use the new Census Bureau's data tool, which is data.census.gov, and we're going to be using both Andy Haight, who works with the economic census, is going to present on all the economic census data you can use pulling out of that data tool. We have Suzan, who is our data dissemination specialist for New Mexico, and she's going to do, for those people who are just novices, a census basics, how do you find data, and then she's going to do an advanced class on how to look up tribal data areas and tribal data. We also will have Kaneen Reese, who is going to cover, for those who are researchers and you use microdata analysis, she's going to cover the tool that accesses just the microdata. So for people who are learning to access data, we have that. We also going to have Erlene Dowell. She's going to cover a particular data series or data tools that come out of what's called local employment dynamics, which map labor force data to census records. And it's very complex data that really helps people identify worker characteristics and transportation travels for jobs. Let me think. We will also have Mike Radcliffe, who works with the Geography Bureau at the Census Bureau, and he's going to, for those who people who are in GIS and use ArcGIS to look at data. He's going to cover the new geographies that'll be available coming with the 2020 census. Local speakers that we're going to, an important one, and one last one from the Census Bureau that we have is Michael Howes. He's going to cover differential privacy. This is a new program on how to safeguard people's confidential data when they fill out the 2020 census, and how they're going to, what that methodology is, and how they're going to do that moving forward. Then we have some local data people. We have our own Jeffrey, Director of Bureau of Business and Economic Research, Jeffrey Mitchell, who's going to talk about the New Mexico economy, especially with the concerns and the impacts of COVID-19 and what our outlook is at. We'll have Robert Reagan with Geospatial Population Studies covering the population projections that are coming out this next month. And then we will also have Lois Haggard with the New Mexico Department of Health Bureau with health data.
Well, I think that'll be a hit.
And then finally, if there's people out there who want to become members of the U.S. Census Bureau State Data Center affiliate program here in New Mexico, we're going to throw open our State Data Center affiliates meeting, and we're going to do a little bit of, review of what happened for the 2020 census and a debrief and a look at how we as a state data center network within New Mexico can respond between this census and the next to have a better 2030 census.
Awesome. And so, like I said, it is free, or up to all of the sessions, correct? At our website, bbr.unm.edu?
Yes. And we have 12 sessions this year, so it'll be great fun.
Awesome. Sarun, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, other than the fact that I'm really excited about the Data Users Conference. So it's the Census Bureau is going in the right direction, I think, by going towards the API sector, and it's very counterintuitive at first, but once you get a hang of it, you will start thinking, why did anybody do the other way to begin with? So join us for the Data Users Conference. It's going to be fun.
Awesome. Suzan, do you want to end us on a happy note? Give us a good push for the last few days or few weeks?
There we go. To anyone listening, if you could reach out to 10 of your friends and encourage them to fill out the census for our communities, this would get us get New Mexico a better count. It's not too late. And in addition to that, icountnm.gov is offering incentives to filling out your census form. I know that if you go out and fill out your census and you send that information into them, they're giving off gift cards, and some of the gift cards are for like $50.
Wow, that's awesome. All right. Well, I think that wraps it up for us here at Enchanting Economics in New Mexico. Don't forget to check us out at BBER, that's bber.unm.edu, or on social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn under @UNMBeber. Thanks for listening, everyone. Please fill out your census if you haven't, and register for the Data Users Conference.